For all intensive purposes, we are setting up a Merit S Mueller Martini trimmer, and the settings in the trimmer are set with the metric system. We have here a conversion chart that goes from inches over to metric. This book is measuring. What I'm going to do is fill out this sheet, and once you fill out this sheet, it'll give you the tool required to set up the trimmer with. We're looking for untrimmed size. We're going to trim this. This book is currently 8 and it's currently 8 1/4 by 11 3/4. We're going to trim it to 8 by 11. And in order to fill out this sheet, we're going to have to use the metric system. So if you'll look at the untrimmed size, which is this, 8 1/4 will be your 209.6, and your 11 3/4, 298.5. Now the trim size we're going to do, I'm just going to write that under title. That'll be our 8 is 203.2 by 11, which is 279.4. All right. We also need to know, here is your trim size. The length we said is 279.4. The width is 203.2. The thickness of the book block is 3/8 of an inch, which is about 9 millimeters. So stack thickness, we'll put 9 millimeters. Cut off left, that's going to be the foot trim. I measured that out to be 1/4 of an inch. If you'll notice, I'll do 1/4 of an inch head trim, and I'll come down 11 inches. And 1, 2, 3, looks like about 3/8 foot trim. The 3/8 foot trim is 9.5. Cut off left. As we get over to the equipment, you'll notice the direction of the book determines left and right. As the direction of the book goes into the cutting bed, the left will be the foot trim. We said was 3/8 of an inch, so that's going to be 9.5. The head trim is going to be cut off right, and we said that would be about 1/4 of an inch, which is 6.4. Cut off front, we're doing 8 by 11. 8 inches. We'll take about 1/4 of an inch off the face, so that's another 6.4. 1/4 of an inch, 6.4. The book width buffer belt, we'll look into that, but you'll add to the untrimmed size, which is the width of 209, you'll add probably about 10 millimeters of that, so we'll say 220. And you'll see where that comes into play as we start to set up the equipment. Books per stack, just for training purposes, we'll just trim one book at a time today, but you can trim as many, up to 3 inches of thickness is the maximum this trimmer will trim. So theoretically, a 1/2 inch book, you could trim 3 up. You could trim 6 up, but I wouldn't suggest trimming no more than 3 or 4 up at a time. Sometimes you start sacrificing quality with the more books you trim at one time. You can up to about 3 inches. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the make ready. That's going to happen over here. This switch here is production mode. When you start the trimmer up, you'll notice both belts run. We're in a production mode. That means the book's coming off of the binder. We'll make it all the way from the delivery all the way into the end feet of the trimmer. As I switch this over to production, up in the middle, I can trim books to test them with after my make ready. So this in make ready turns off both the belts so I can set up the equipment while someone else sets up the binder. This is a time stop. This is a critical feature of the panel board that you must remember. Of course, you always have an e-stop. God forbid you have a safety issue or you happen to see a real massive jam up. You know, you can emergency stop, but I wouldn't suggest using that. For training purposes, you want to use the time stop, and you'll notice when you do a time stop, it stops at 100, and right here on the panel board it shows you 185 degrees. That's where you can make all your settings. You can do blade changes, take the pad out, the cassette out. You can test your books. You can basically do all of your, your setup is required that you stop in a time stop, 185 degrees. And what we'll do now is our make ready. We're over into the make ready mode. You look at the sizes. F1 allows you to change all your axes, and these are your axes right here, and they also are noted right here, like your side cut, for example, which is the book length, is signified here as A. We talked about the cutoff right, which is your head trim. That's signified here as E, right here and here. Your cutoff right, which is your foot trim, or the cutoff left, signified by D. That's your foot trim. So just to reiterate, that's your foot trim, your trim size, and your head trim. All of that together equals your untrimmed size, which is noted up here. That lets the joggers know how wide it needs to be before any cuts are being made. So we'll enter the sizes by using the F1. You select your axis A. I suggest you just go down the alphabet. A. We'll enter. This number's 279.4. F1. Try this again. We're in the time stop. F1. Select axis A. Enter your size 279.4. 279.4. We're going to enter. That's delete. We don't use that. A is blinking. So the machine has taken that size that you've entered. We'll go to the second setting, which is the book width. We said it was going to be 8 by 11, so 8 inches equals 203.2. Push B, 203.2. Enter the size, it blinks, hit B, and it's accepted that size. Enter your format, your axis. We'll go to C. That's the thickness. We said it was 9 millimeters. We'll enter that number. It's blinking. Hit C. It accepted the measurement. Cut off left, we said was foot trim. It'll be 9. D, 9.5. Enter. And then press D again. It accepted the size. Go to E, which we said is the head trim. 6.4. Enter. Press E. It accepted the size. F is how much we're taking off the face cut. 6.4. Enter. It's blinking. Push F. It accepted that setting. Book with buffer belt. I'm going to show you what that is in a minute. If you look here, it's the entry belts that allow the book to come into the hopper. Enter. That's Q 220. Enter. Q. It accepted that size. Books you're cutting. I'm trimming one up. Even though it's there, you can enter it. You could have put whatever, 2, 3. X, it accepted all these settings. That's kind of all you need to worry with in your make ready is these rows of numbers right here. So what you do here, you hit end, and it's going to ask you to take out the pressing pad and the cassette. And the proper way to do this, with your guards in place. There's your pressing pad. It's asking you to remove the pressing pad. It's asking you to remove the cassette. Push this down. This is a locking mechanism. It allows you to take the cassette out, push this down. There's a latch here, you flip over. You'll notice it catches it right here. That releases it. Pull your cassette out. I'll just pull this down, allow the machine to do its thing. Alright, so it's asking you if the pressing and the cassette has been removed. You'll see the plus, minus, yes. And right now all your blades are coming into an 8 by 11 inch book with we set a 1/4 inch head trim and I think it's 3/8 foot trim. Your joggers are moving themselves in. We're going from a big book to a small book, so it's already done its thing. It's telling you what size cassette you need to use. The one I took out was a 17 because the last book was over 11 inches. So we're going to put a size 15 cassette in. And there's your 15. These millimeters suggest the variation of the length of your book. It's an 11 inch book, so it's telling me 15 is the right cassette. So somewhere in between here and here is 11 inches. So the blades come down into the stick, not into the metal. Make sure that's down in there securely. Release this latch. I'm pushing this down, pulling this up, and releasing that. Now for training purposes, I'm using a little cassette. It's actually smaller than the pad I would use in trimming this book. But the key here is to remember this needs to be less than 8 inches because the book is 8 by 11. I like to make my pads about 1/8 of an inch